Hello, my name is Arthur. I present to you my first 3D machine that I started making more than a year ago. This is simply terrible because much more models could have been made in a year, but this happened not only because of the complexity of the model and lack of necessary experience and knowledge. I deliberately chose a complex model so that during its implementation I would learn as much as possible. And in general everything turned out exactly like that. And so, my first lesson was probably what was needed right away: find as many references as possible. I started making a model with only a drawing with projections at hand. But this was not enough because the drawing does not reflect full detail. This became especially clear when I started making the chassis elementscar parts. When modeling this machine, I made many mistakes, including in the modeling technique itself. I tried to create many elements using standard objects, such as a cube, cylinder, etc. I realized this mistake only at the very end when I realized that I need to optimize the model by removing unnecessary polygons. I also constantly used a subdivision modifier, which led to unpleasant consequences in the form of 1,000 unnecessary edges. I just didn't realize that modifiers are auxiliary tools and not a modeling method. I made all the elements of this model separately using, as I already said, modifiers. I redid many details, such as the base of the windshield, several times to get a more or less realistic version. For me, the wheel, tire, of the car became a huge problem. I probably remade it 10 times and also tried to do it in an alternative way, namely to imitate the relief of the tire using textures, but this method turned out to be more difficult for me. Around the time I brought the model into a more or less decent form, I had technical problems. My old computer simply could not cope with this model, especially when trying to render it, and soon my PC simply crashed and I was unable to fix it. I didn't have a computer for about 4 months, but then I finally bought myself a new long-awaited computer which, it seemed to me, could handle any scenes without any problems. It turned out that this is not entirely true, but that's not about that now. Even on a new computer, I had to divide the model into 3 parts in order to export it to SP. I reworked the materials even more times than the wheel, since I had problems with the output of cards from the program. I also changed it about 3 times. Scan on almost all elements of this model has not yet yielded a more or less acceptable result. By this point, I was already so tired of this mod that I just wanted to finish giving up on my desire to get the perfect result. I was very far from ideal. I turned to other modelers for help to help me solve the problem with the textures. The fact is that after exporting the maps from the joint venture and importing them into Blender, they were completely modified and produced artifacts. I ended up losing over a month on this since in the end no one helped me, and I solved the problem by simply manually correcting the artifacts on the normal map in Photoshop. And after a very long time, I completed this model, if I may say so, since technically this model is no good. Only now I realized that there was no need to make all the elements separately. It was possible to create several different elements of the car or only one object in the Blender. This would simplify the modeling process, save resources and simplify texturing. According to the original idea, I made this model for sale, so I added a few modular elements, such as the roof, hubcaps and spare wheel, but I don't know who could use this model with so many problems.